Welcome to our Functional Skills Bite-Size session on deciphering questions. I've got a few session objectives before we start. So by the end of this session, you should all be able to identify the key requirements of the written task, identify the format, audience and purpose in any question, and also recognise the standard practices in any written document. We'll readdress those session objectives at the end, and if anybody has any further questions, then I can answer them at the end. Before I go any further, the presentation that I've created does contain a lot of written detail. Now, to reduce the amount that you'll be expected to read, I've included a full slide with all the information on, and then I've created a second slide with minimal information on. And I will be skipping on to the second slide just so that it's not too overwhelming for you, but I don't want you guys to think that I'm skipping forward and you've missed something. So that's just for you to be aware that when I skip forward quickly, you're not missing anything. I'm just going to highlight the information that you need for that particular section. And as always, we'll send out a copy of the slides after the session as well. So if you want to look back over them afterwards. Again, I didn't click forward on my screen there, and I already said that. So when I move quickly between the slides, it's because the information is on the second slide. Okay. Okey-doke. Okay, so during your written exam then, excuse me a second. Not very professional, sorry about that. So during your written element of the exam, you're expected to complete 2 written tasks. And in both of the tasks, you'll be expected to meet the same marking criteria, same marking requirements. So I'm just going to pull up the marking requirements. These will be present in your exam, but you probably would skim over them quite quickly, I would imagine. Now, when I put them up on the screen, they are going to look quite formal and quite complicated. What I'm going to do, in the next couple of slides, I'll break it down so you have a clear understanding of what the requirements are. So on the next point, it's going to pull up the requirements. So it says here you will be assessed on, and then it's got 7 points. I'm not going to read through those 7 points just yet. I'm going to go through them one by one in a moment. However, if I read through the first one, the wording is very formal. So it says communicating information, ideas and opinions clearly, coherently and effectively. And you'll notice straight away the language they use is very formal. So this information, when you read this initially, you do your written exam, you will use this information to start your planning. So when you do your written exam, you'll have a space on your paper to do any planning, or if it's online, you'll be able to make notes. And these are the sorts of things that you're going to be pulling out to do your plan. Okay. So just moving on to the looking at them in a little bit more detail. Now, again, I've got the same 7 points on this slide, and the next slide I'm going to pull out 3 points in particular. So I just highlighted them here. Don't worry about reading them a second, so I'm going to pull them up on the next slide. So these 7 points, if I haven't made that clear, are what you will be assessed on in your written task. Okay. Now, the first 3 points are standard practice that you'll be expected to do. For level 1, level 2, and also entry level as well. If you were to do entry level, these are standard literacy practices. So the first one, I've got them all coming up at once. So the first one anyway is you're expected to communicate information, ideas and opinions clearly, coherently and effectively. The second one, you're expected to be constructing complex sentences consistently and accurately and using paragraphs where appropriate. So you'd be expected to write a readable sentence structure then. So your sentences would need to make sense, and you'd also be expected to use paragraphing in your written work. And the third bullet point for standard practice is using correct spelling, punctuation and grammar. So those three things are standard that they would expect anybody to be able to achieve. So those things I'm not going to go over in this session. I believe we have bite-sized sessions for some of the other points. That was my thinking face, sorry about that. I do believe we have bite-sized sessions for paragraphing, I'm not sure, but I believe we have for spelling, punctuation and grammar. If not, I'm sure it's something that we could organise in the future. So I am going to move on from those now and concentrate on the other 4 points that are more specific for this bite-sized session. Okay, so understanding the requirements. So the remaining assessment points are going to help you answer the question appropriately and gain the most marks. Now, the questions that these 4 bullet points that I've highlighted. The questions that you get in the exam will be different. They will differ. They will never be the same questions unless you're looking at the sample papers. However, the marking criteria will always be the same. So it's a very good idea to understand the marking criteria. Gives you it puts you in a good position to be able to answer any question that they provide you with. Okay, so all I've put on this slide now is the 4 bullet points that we'll be looking at in particular. So I'm going to pull up the bullet points one by one, and what I'd like you guys to do is in the chat, I'd like you to tell me what you think the most important parts in each sentence, and I'll highlight them on my screen. So the first bullet point, I've got communicating with appropriate detail to serve purpose and audience. And what if I was highlighting anything in this sentence that I thought was important, what would it be? What words would I be looking at to highlight? Appropriate details, lovely. Oops. Oh, and I've gone forward a little bit, sorry about that. Any others? Phil is typing. Purpose and audience, lovely. Excellent, exactly. So they're the ones that I would have highlighted myself. So appropriate detail to suit the purpose and the audience. So purpose and audience is very, very important alongside the detail that you are going to be including in your written work. I've already gone on to the second bullet point by accident. So same again for this bullet point now. What words do you think I would be highlighting in this bullet point? Same again, if you could pop the answers in the chat. Format, lovely. What's my highlighter here? So format, excellent. Anything else? Purpose and audience again, yes. So this one we're looking at the format. Format and structure possibly come together. They pretty much I would say they're pretty much similar actually. And purpose and audience. Fab, lovely. Just going to move on to the third question. So this one then, same again. Pop in the chat any words that stand out that we should be paying attention to. So conveying clear meaning and establishing cohesion using organisational markers. Clear meaning, excellent. Fab, anything else? Before we move on to the next one? Cohesion, yeah. Fab, clear meaning and cohesion, just making sure the meaning of the document is very clear and it makes sense, basically. Last one then, same again, pop in the chat where you think we're going to be highlighting. So this one, use an appropriate language and register for purpose and audience. Oh, appropriate language, lovely. Appropriate language, and again, purpose and audience. Yeah, fab, excellent. So kind of a theme coming through there. So purpose and audience is very important. Format and structure, appropriate detail, making sure it's clear, and appropriate language. Fab. The next slide I've got, basically I highlighted everything that you guys mentioned. So you were all spot on, so awesome. So the other thing that we're looking at when we're just trying to decipher our questions, now that we understand the marking criteria a little bit better, we need to understand the format and the audience as well. I'm only going to touch on these briefly today. There are bite-sized sessions for types of documents, I believe, that I will get Sophie to attach in the email later on. So for format and audience, each task will ask you to use a different format and also be suitable for a certain audience. So types of documents, what sort of types of documents do you think you would be asked to create? Again, if you could pop in the chat function what you think. Report, lovely. Any others? No? Okay, it is late, so I'll give you a helping hand. So we've got letter, article, blog, narrative, email or report. You could be asked to create any of those documents. If you are, you would be expected to lay out the format as you would expect that document to be laid out. So if you were asked to write a letter, you would be expected to lay out the document as a letter. Like I said, that we have got the bite-sized sessions for documents as well for you to have a look at. Moving on to different audiences. So same again, any idea what sort of audiences you would be asked to create your written document for? Give you a little helping hand on this one as well. So it could be for a work colleague, to a friend, or official. Fab, thank you, Phil. Professionals as well. Thank you, John. So I've got work colleague, friend, bank manager, family member, member of parliament, magazine readers, or professional. Now, the one thing that you have to remember with the audiences is that you would change your tone of writing for different audience members, for different audiences. So if you were asked to write, say, an email to a friend, you would imagine the language would be more relaxed. It would be quite light-hearted, maybe. But if you were writing a letter to your local MP, the language that you use would be more formal. So think of your audience when you're being asked to write your document, and make sure that it is suitable for the intended audience as well. I am aware that I think I've just hit the 15-minute mark from when we started. There's not an awful lot yet left to go through, so I will go through it as quickly as possible because I know time's getting on now. Okay, so now we've identified the type of document and the different audiences that we can come across. The other thing that you will be looking at, you'll be looking out for the key verb. This is something that will be covered in more detail on Thursday, so I am going to skip through this a little bit quickly than I normally would have. But in your task title, you'll be looking out for key verbs to help you with the purpose of your written document. I was going to ask you to put a couple of different examples in the chat, but I'm just going to pop them up on the screen quickly now. So we've got different examples of your key verbs. We've got explain, detail, encourage, describe, persuade, inform, instruct, and narrate. One more, yeah, advise as well. So these are key verbs that you could come across, and they could be in the questions. Like I said, these will be covered in more detail on Thursday for you guys. But depending on what the key verb is would depend on how you would write your document. So for example, if you were asked to write a letter to persuade someone, the information in that document would be very persuasive. You would normally be putting all the good points across because you're trying to persuade them to do something that you want. So you might put some bad points in there, but then you might counteract them with some good points to display the positives and persuade them to do what you want to do, basically. So they are your key verbs. So I'm just going to have a little look now at an example of a sample question. I've got two different examples for you. This is taken from the sample paper. Again, I'm going to read this out and then I'm going to ask you to put in the chat the words that we will be highlighting when we're doing our planning. So we've got question 1. So you work in sorry, it's very late. You work in the head office of a large high street clothes retailer that has many branches throughout England. One of your responsibilities is to visit the company's shops as a mystery shopper and to report back to the head office on your experience. Then your task then, so I'm just going to skip over the page. So I've got your task here. And this is what I want you guys to have a look at, and I want you to type in the chat the words that you will be pulling out when you're doing your planning and what you're going to be writing about in your written document. So it says your task is to write a report to give to your manager about your visit to one of the shops. Your report should include details of your visit, appearance and tidiness of the store, availability of staff to help you, customer service skills and attitude of staff, and stock availability. So in the chat now, write all the words that we should be paying attention to, and I will highlight them. So thinking about what we just went through. Oh, lovely. So sorry, I blinked then and it all popped up on the screen. So we're looking at the format. So it's a report. What's the other one we got? Details. Lovely. So we're writing a report and we're including details. Anything else? P-words. Lovely. Anything before we get to the bullet points that might stand out to you guys? Remember what I said in the last couple of slides? Fab to your manager. Lovely. So we're looking at the format, which is a report, and we're looking at our audience, which is our manager. So those first two things in the first sentence are going to tell us the format that we're writing in and who is going to be to. So the audience is going to help us set our tone. So if you're writing to your manager, if I was writing to my manager, I would be writing quite formally, even if it was even if it was something about an informal topic, the tone of the words that I would use would be formal, because there's a professional email or whatever it is that I'm writing. Because this is a report, it would be very formal, so it would be very professional words. I wouldn't use words like you wouldn't shorten your words then, so you wouldn't use a word like isn't, or I wasn't very impressed, or things like that. You would use more formal language. And then moving on then to the bullet point, so including details of your visit. So they want you to explain all about your visit. Again, this will be covered on Thursday, but if you're asked to provide details, you would be expected to ask to talk about what happened when you were there, all the important things that went on during your visit. Again, appearance, untidiness of the store, descriptive words. So you'd be using descriptive language as well. Okay. What's the time? Oh, okay. So I'm going to give you one more example, and I'm going to see what words you're going to pull out of this next example for me. So example 2, you have recently been on 2 different work placements. You were given the first placement, but you found it to be quite boring and irrelevant to your future career path. You chose the second one yourself and found it much more interesting and beneficial because it was more relevant to your career plans. So your task then, so I'm going to just skip on to the next page. Write a blog about your experiences aimed at people preparing for work experience. Your blog should encourage people to seek their own placements in an area that interests them. Again, if you write in the chat the words that we're going to pull out of this task title, and these are things that we're going to write down in our plan, because these are the important words we're going to be talking about. So we've got blog, lovely. First one, again, it follows the same sort of pattern. It's telling you what format we're going to be writing it as. Anything else?
Experiences.
Experiences, lovely, yes. This is following a slightly different pattern. So the experiences is coming second, but that is your key verb. So this is going to be all the information that you're going to be including. Work experience, lovely. Fab, work experience. Now, just seeing if anyone, I would look at the couple of words before work experience. So it's people preparing for work experience. So that is your audience. Where in the last example, it was quite clear, it was your manager. Now your audience this time is people preparing for work experience. Okay, so that is your audience. So in this example, what do you think your language would be in this example? Now, it's a completely different scenario. So we've got a blog. It's not a report, it's a blog. And it's for people preparing for work. So what sort of language do you think you'll be, what sort of tone do you think you'll be setting for this one? Relaxed. Fab. Diverse, yeses. Friendly, yes. So, oops. Yes, exactly. So a relaxed tone, a friendly tone. You'd use more informal. I wouldn't say too informal. It would still be, because it's a blog and you've still got a semi-professional tone about it, but it would be more relaxed and friendly. Exactly. And the other point that was mentioned as well is encourage people. You would be encouraging. So that's another main key verb. You're encouraging. So you would be telling them all the good points of what you found beneficial for you when you were preparing for work. Lost my breath then, sorry. Okay, so I am aware that we are just coming towards the end of our time. So I'm just going to go on to our top tips for deciphering our questions. So basically, putting everything that I've rambled on about for the last 20 minutes into 4 top tips. got the first top tip is highlighting. So when you're faced with your exam question, make sure that you highlight the important aspects of the question before carrying out your planning. Your planning is a very, very key part. I find if you get your planning right, then the rest will follow very, very, very well. The second top tip, identify the format of your document and the audience. As you notice in the two examples, they were in the first sentence, who your document was to be aimed at, and the format as well. I said that the wrong way around, sorry, I meant to say the format and then who it was aimed at. So what they're asking you to write and who is it to. Third one, identifying the key verb. So this will help you to write the document for the correct purpose. The key verb is really, really important. If you get that wrong, then the purpose of your document is off. So in your planning, just highlight it and, you know, decide who, what it is you're going to be including in your document. And then the last one then, don't forget the standard practice points that we talked about at the beginning. So those 3 bullet points, your paragraphing, your spelling, punctuation and grammar, they come as a standard in any of your written documents. So just a recap then of our objectives. So we identified the key requirements of the written task, identified the format, audience and purpose in any question, and also recognise the standard practices in any written document. So that concludes our functional skills bite size on deciphering questions.